Good evening.
Good morning. How we doing?
I'm amazing. Thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm good. It's been a roller coaster. These fun eclipses, Mercury retrograde,
Oof.
all of the above. I
Yeah.
think we really need a shirt that says blame it on Mercury.
Did I send you the reel that my friend made about we all have those friends that that blame everything on the moon?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, she's
That's me.
hilarious. She's hilarious. She's an amazing comedian. I don't even know if she's professionally a comedian, but she's so funny. She absolutely should be. But I was like, yeah, that's me. But
She
honestly,
was so good.
I
Yeah.
don't know how these people live life without people that say to me, I don't believe in astrology. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how can you not?
It
It's so
the
crazy.
alignment. The alignments are so real. It's so wild. I know. It's been a lot. And I think that Bitcoin is also representing that, but we'll circle back to that soon.
Sure.
But
How was the eclipse for you? Like, what came up for you?
yeah, so for me it's it was definitely a lot of like health related stuff, which nothing super serious, but I just received a lot of confirmations on things that I had been feeling. And I
Mm,
think that was a big sigh of relief. And also a friendly reminder that you are your own best doctor. You are your own best coach. You are your own best everything. And when you really do listen to yourself and call it intuition, call it that gut feeling, like you really know. And so that was a really beautiful reminder of you really know yourself best when you stop and listen. So it was nice to get the 3D world reality confirmations,
yeah,
you know?
interesting.
And then also a lot of and it's been interesting because the more I like talk to people, even some like of my students and stuff, like I get a lot of the same themes. And
Mm,
one of them has been a lot of exhaustion, a lot of people just being like, I'm trying to go, I'm trying to do the thing. And I had scheduled to do this, but then I ended up sleeping throughout the whole day, or I just felt like lying there and being. And then it leads into the guilt and the shame because I'm not doing and I'm not performing. And this world wants me to perform all the time, but I just want to take 50 naps. And I think that's been a really big reoccurring theme too. And I felt a lot of that the weekend of the eclipse. Like I
mm.
even had friends staying with us, and I was literally just knocked out. Like I would be chilling in the lounge room, all chatting. So unlike me, because what I did was completely fall asleep while we were all chatting, whereas I'm normally the super chatty one. So that was
Yes,
really
Miss Leo.
Yes, it's very Leo. We just love to chat.
Life of the party. Yeah. So wow. I mean, that is just so your body
Yeah,
just saying, I
exactly.
need a break. I need to take this time, like 100%. Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. How about you? How was it for you?
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
It was a whole thing. I mean, it started off amazing. Like I had the week before, I had the best trading week I've ever had, like ever. And it was
Ooh,
like
let's
such a
go.
milestone moment. I was just like, wow, so I was like,
Yes.
yeah, this is amazing. And then I
Love it.
had a friend visit me from Dubai, a really good friend of mine, and we just had such a blast. Like it was so lovely to see him after so long. And we
Mhm.
just chatted and chatted and chatted and drank tequila and, chatted about
Wow.
things I haven't even thought about for maybe a decade, and just like really good time
Love that.
like that. And then a couple of days after the eclipse, I mean, eclipse energy is very weird, because it really it brings to the surface, it's this revealing energy, and it brings to the surface things that have probably been hidden from you or unseen for a really long time. And
I know that this obviously hasn't been an easy period of time for you. So I'm sending you lots of love, lots of healing, and lots of strength
yeah,
during this time. And anybody else that's been going through it, because eclipses really, they hurt. When things come to
Mhm.
light that we don't expect, it hurts, no matter how prepared you are for it, no matter how much we say, cool, eclipse season is coming, which rug is about to be pulled from under me, like, you
Yeah,
know, no matter how prepared you are, it still hurts. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's not been easy. I've I've probably cried more in the last week. Oh, love the love hearts. I probably cried more in the last week. That's why my eyes are so puffy. But
You
yeah,
look amazing anyway. I didn't even notice it.
came to terms in a way that like this is just what life is, we grow some, we get pruned in another area, we grow some more in another area, we get pruned, this is life, and so even though these things
Yeah.
are tough, yeah, we survive and we transcend them. And some of the key
Absolutely.
takeaways that I want other people, like I know a lot of people actually who've been really going through it this eclipse season. One of my very, very close friends is going through a very complicated heartbreak, like very deep heartbreak. And a lot of people are navigating some stuff. It is the closing of cycles, it is, and it is painful. But
Yeah.
some of the things I want people to take away is, number one, like, don't let other people dismiss or invalidate your feelings or try to talk you out of or gaslight you about how you're feeling, especially if you are a sensitive person. Like, I've been told my entire life, I think you've had the same, Corinne, where it's just like, oh, you're too sensitive, you need to get a thicker skin, you're overreacting,
Stop overreacting.
yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
the
Good.
the real honest thing about that is like I've even had conversations with my mother about it, because I'm like, why did you do that to me? And she said, like, I just was worried like that the world would crush you if you're too sensitive. But she even acknowledged that, she's like, but now, like, I can see that that is literally your superpower. And so anybody that
Yeah.
like feels that way, you know it if you're a sensitive person, that is an intuitive person, like, since I was a child, I've always felt more than other people feel, I've always seen more than other people see, I've always understood and
Yep.
just known stuff that other people don't, and not everybody is going to understand that. Even yourself, sometimes you don't understand that. But I think also we are in a period of time where those like intuitive gifts are heightened. Like, I feel that in myself, and I don't personally think, for me anyway, I don't feel like it's like my spidey sense is stronger. I just really feel that the veil between the seen and the unseen is less dense than it has been previously. And so I
Yes.
think a lot of people are going to notice this. Like, you're going to notice things that you didn't notice before. But it's one of those things also, funnily enough, we was kind of talking about this before we started recording, that like I know everybody has probably had this experience where they just have this gut feeling about something, like something's off when you meet someone immediately. And
Yeah.
but you can't, like, I haven't mastered this yet personally, but you can't like do anything or say anything because they haven't done anything yet, and you almost
Yes.
rationalize it and go, oh well, they haven't done anything, like you've got to give them a chance or whatever. And look,
Red
this
flag.
red flag. And
Mm.
then it's like it comes back around and you're like, okay, I knew this all the time. And I think that that's when I get most upset, and upset with myself, because I'm like, I knew this, but what about you? Like, how do you navigate that? Because it's like that spidey
Mm.
sense goes off immediately sometimes when you meet someone, but it's like, oh, I've got to give people a chance, and give they
Yeah.
always ends up showing itself,
It always does. But you know what's so funny is that, I mean, I definitely relate to my whole life. People have always told me you're too sensitive, you're overreacting, you get emotional too much. Um, so I definitely relate to that. And I do realize that that is my superpower. And I'm definitely continuing to step more and more into that. On the other side of when I meet people, I'm
Mm.
not gonna lie, and maybe this is my Leo-ness, I'm like, yay, everybody's my best friend. And if anything, I had to learn to not make everybody my best friend so quickly.
Yeah.
And um luckily, I have been blessed and protected in my life by, well, my mother, majority of my life, even though I hate to admit it sometimes. She is the one that, every time a friend or a boyfriend would like come over and she would be like, I don't know about this one. And she would have the spidey tingles, right?
Uh-huh.
Whereas, and she's always proven me wrong. And now it's my husband. And at the start, I would fight him against this stuff because I would always be like, whether like, not like you're jealous, or I'd be like, oh, like, like stop, like I maybe even fell into those moments of like, you're exaggerating. And I would put mm, excuses, I would defend others.
Yeah.
Until then, even there, he proved me right every time. So now I'm learning to step more and more into that. And for everybody listening, maybe you guys don't have that sense, that immediate sense, but you have somebody in your life that's close to you and loves you and cares for you, that they have that. And that's their superpower. And I've just learned, like, I don't question it anymore. Like, if Alex is like, hey, babe, I don't know about this person, I'm like, no worries. Got you, babe. Like, we're a team on that. But I have instead learned over time that as the red flags arise, you need to be present with the red flags and you need to like see them and be like, okay, I can't justify this for this person. There's
Yeah.
only so many times. And already one red flag, and this has been coming up for me during this Mercury retrograde and eclipse as well. It's like, if the red flag is there, don't ignore it. Like, embrace it. Just recognize it, jot it down, and maybe start to shift your energy. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's more arm's
yeah.
length. Like, I mean, we're not telling
Mm.
everybody to be like, go out and be looking for red flags or go out and
No,
rude to people or
no,
mean to people. Like, definitely not.
no.
Like, that's not it at all. But it's more just like trust that and just, I think you and I are the same. Like, we really give so much of ourselves instantly because we kind of love that. I
Yes.
love those kind of friendships. I love those relationships. And it's like, yeah,
Mm,
we give too much of ourselves too quickly. And especially if there is a
yeah.
bit of a red flag, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna like go slow with this for sure. So
And
interesting.
I also feel like this is an empath thing.
Mhm.
I think that empaths, we naturally also we want to like love and care for. And when we see the red flags, it's so easy for us to justify it because we're like, oh, but they're healing and they're going through things and they're hurting. And I just, sometimes we even fall into that savior, like, I'm gonna save them. And it's like, no, that is not our job.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, empaths, we feel you, but I promise that there's so many positive sides to being an empath.
100%. I wouldn't want
It's
to
a
see
superpower.
1000%. I wouldn't want to be any other way. Honestly, I really wouldn't,
Yes,
especially in this age. Like, I think that we are built for this. Bring it on. But just some
bring it
quick
on.
sort of things. Like, I also
Yeah.
recognize that, like, even this eclipse season, or even with what's going on with Bitcoin and crypto at the moment, that some people may be like in the feels because there
Yes.
is that element of like, especially like, okay, Bitcoin has had a pullback. Now, everybody listening to the Bitcoin Zodiac for the last couple of episodes will be chilling because we've been waiting for pullbacks to happen. Like we know it's coming, but for anybody this is their first cycle in crypto, welcome. This is the roller coaster that is
Here
crypto.
it is.
But I want to sort of honor the feelings of people who maybe are in a lot of alts in their portfolio and are like waking up to their portfolio being 40% down one morning. This is a horrible feeling. Again, it's that same eclipse energy of like rug being pulled out from under you, and so how do we navigate that? Because to be honest, when you feel pain, like pain is information, no matter what kind of pain. Like if it's sadness, if it's hurt, if it's anger, if it's all of these uncomfortable emotions, this information. And when it comes to your crypto portfolio, there's information there. Like maybe you are too heavy in meme coins, and you need to
Red
read
flag.
something like that. Yeah, exactly. Obviously not people listening to the Bitcoin Zodiac. We
No,
obviously not. We have amazing
obviously not.
balanced portfolios, but or when someone betrays you, someone lets you down, something like that. This is information, and we have this tendency to internalize it. Like oh, I'm such an idiot. My whole portfolio is meme coins. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I didn't listen, I didn't recognize that about that person. But like often the information is not about you and your value. The information is about that person, it's about them and their character. And so it's like, what do you do with that information? And like, how do we process that properly? Because we don't want to waste these uncomfortable emotions. We want to release them. And one of the first things, there's really two parts to this that are both equally important. And the first thing is to really feel your feelings fully. Like the only way out of the discomfort, the uncomfortable feelings, the only way out is through. If we try to avoid them, or we try to block them out, or we go to a party and ignore them, or we binge watch stuff on Netflix and try and bypass this, like whatever it is that you do to try and avoid feeling those emotions, like we're really just prolonging the pain. And probably instead of going through, we're doing this like massive detour and creating a whole heap more problems along the way. So it's like really feeling those emotions and allowing them to sit with them, allowing yourself to be with them. And that, I promise you, they dissipate so much more quickly when you actually like honor them. And the thing is, if you don't, and you do suppress them, you do bypass them, it sets up something like they can sit in your, they get trapped in your body. And sometimes they can be trapped in your body in the form of stiffness or illness or something like that, or they're in your nervous system, they're in your psyche, and you become like very hyper vigilant and triggered. So anything that even closely resembles that kind of scenario again, your subconscious, without you even being aware of it, is going to go straight into fight or flight mode. And you're just going to live in this reactive space all the time. It's just no way to live. Feel the emotions, let them go. The second part of it is really important too. Don't stay there. Like feel your sadness, but don't build a home there. There has to be this desire to move through and to move out of the other side, to go to a place of grace, to find a place of forgiveness. And a lot of times the first person that you need to forgive is probably going to be yourself. You're looking, we've had this conversation before for sure. And we're already hard on ourselves. Absolutely.
Really are.
And yeah, if you're looking at like 40% down on your portfolio and you're like, I'm an idiot, I'm doing this, you know what? Forgive yourself. Like there's plenty of room to grow. Don't worry about it. But also, yeah, just learn those lessons and don't stay there beating yourself up. Don't stay there like in your sadness. Oh, people betray me. Nobody cares about my feelings. Everybody hurts me. You can indulge in that for like 5 minutes, but like let that go. And when I say forgiveness, I also don't mean like pretend nothing ever happened. And that's not actually what forgiveness is, it's really not. There are going to be, sometimes you're going to see things about people that you can't unsee, but you can still forgive them and release that tension between you and that person, that energetic tension between you and that person, and release it. So yeah, I hope that helps
Wow.
anybody that's going through some stuff during this time. I've been going through it. No one's immune to it. It's part of life, it really is.
It really is. No, thank you so much for sharing those. I think they're amazing tips. Even in particular, well, in every aspect of life, but when we look at especially this period of time during trading and investing, this is just a really great time. And again, this is what eclipses brings to us, lessons. So
Mm,
like what I love to do during this time, or anytime that I catch myself like down or in my thoughts, is start to write it out, start to write out what was the choice maybe that you made, and what is the lesson there, and next time how are you going to respond to a similar scenario. And I love what you said about just feeling things.
mm.
We are in such a society and a world that tells us to ignore our feelings, to push them aside. And I actually really feel for men. Like, I
Yeah,
think especially for men, this is, I never want to like coach men when it comes to this sort of thing, because I feel like men get to teach men this side of things. But
yeah,
like, I think it's so important for a man to feel. I think it's actually really sexy when a man feels,
yeah,
and when they fully embody their emotions. And like, if they're sad, they're going to be sad. If they're going to be angry, cool, be angry. But then like the processing of why did I get angry? How did I react? How am I going to respond next time? Like, it's so beautiful to see in a man. Um, and let's be real, trading brings out, especially crypto, it really brings out the shadow of all of us. And so it's just, especially when your portfolio is looking red, those trades are getting liquidated, it's just such a beautiful time to be in your feels. But like you said, don't stay there, continue forward,
yeah.
and
I
find
love
new
what you
ways of
said.
responding.
I love what you said about men as well, because I also, yeah, like it's hot, for men to feel their feel. But they also, I think men also do that in such a different way to women, and
Exactly.
like I think, I don't know, I think society is really hard on men, or has been recently, like, and it's almost this kind
Yeah.
of like revenge thing, like the patriarchy. Like no one's denying that that existed. Absolutely. Women have been oppressed for a really long time. We all know why. Divine feminine energy is so powerful, but
So
it doesn't make us any better to like hate men or be hard on men. And I think our society has been really hard on men and has not allowed them to feel, and almost shamed them for having feelings, number one, but also like they don't feel in the same way as women. And that's like, okay, like that's that.
exactly.
And so it's like,
Exactly.
can we just like let men be men and women be women? Like, is that okay? Can we just can
I
we do
know.
that? And can we move in that direction, please? Because I think that would be really great. But
Yeah,
yeah.
agreed. Agreed. But we're all getting there. We're
We're
all evolving, and we'll get there. Like we were talking about before we started recording, good wins in the end. So it will all come together. It's all gonna work out, guys.
do.
um,
And I think a lot of the Bitcoin Zodiac listeners, they probably are like, oh, this eclipse, my portfolio being down,
yeah,
no problem. I'm just stacking sats. We were waiting for this pullback. I'm
yeah,
stacking sats. So I love you
yeah,
guys for being there with that. And I hope that I hope our podcast and somehow like ease the volatility for
exactly.
you, you know?
Exactly. I love that. And so when just to really quickly touch on Bitcoin, circling back to what we spoke about last episode with the solar eclipse in Aries. So that was a new moon marking local tops. Not gonna lie, like we did talk about how very positive the astrology looked for Bitcoin.
Mhm.
And we also said we just don't know how positive it could be or not be because of Mercury retrograde. Like Mercury retrograde is really a time, and this is why I know so many traders that don't even follow astrology, but they're going to put Mercury retrograde in their charts
Yeah.
because it's such a challenging time and it's such like an unexpected time where in particular Bitcoin just gets so affected by Mercury retrograde. So we can do as much forecasting as we want, but there's always going to be surprises. And I really feel like with this Mercury retrograde, it just really it really held Bitcoin back. And it just goes to show with, and maybe I'll just share my screen so we can look at the astrological chart at the moment that we have up here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
whenever,
we did also say that there would be volatility, we did have,
yes,
we,
we
at the
did.
new moon, we did have that move up quite,
We did.
I
Exactly.
wouldn't say it was necessarily a substantial move up, but it was quite a quick move up, and
It
so,
was.
and then we're getting volatility to the downside. So this pre-halving, it's choppy. And like you
It
said, Mercury retrograde does really push down on that kind of like upward movement.
does.
It feels like a bit of a
It does.
um,
Yeah.
cap to get through.
Um, yeah. Would you mind being allowing me to share the screen, please?
Sure.
Yeah. And you're right. Absolutely. Like that day was extremely, like it was very positive on the 8th of April. I know many of us were sitting there being like, okay, is this going to be the break above and that creation of that new all-time high to break that previous high, but it just didn't. But we can see that it was quite a positive period of time coming up to that day, which
Mm.
was the 8th of April. And then afterwards, we just started our descent down to the full moon in Scorpio, which is where we're headed to now. And I remember us talking about, yeah, lots of volatility, bit of yuckiness here in between, even the coming days for those that are watching, we're recording this on the 16th of April. We just have some not so beautiful days coming up. And that's just Mercury retrograde. We do have Mercury retrograde until the 26th of April. And we have some pretty cool astrology in between there, which we can start to chat on. And I think that the main thing to really talk about or circle back to is when we spoke about the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So, as you guys just saw there, we have it dated for the 20th of April, and that's the day that it's going to be at 100%. But that is already starting from April 18th to the 26th. So that's beautifully aligned with ending with that Mercury retrograde to the 26th and that energy playing out. So we spoke about how Taurus rules and governs bull markets. It governs Wall Street as well as the trading of gold bullion. Jupiter is, on the other hand, known to expand everything it touches. It's got everything to do with wealth. And Uranus is all about technology, about breakthroughs, and even earthquakes. So that's when we just know anything that is associated with Uranus, where like hold your horses, like something's about to come up. Now, also during this time, Taurus, and there's a lot of Taurus energy coming up as well. Like I'm going to talk a little bit about Venus in Taurus as well coming up. But Taurus also symbolizes values.
Yeah.
And it's very much about, this time is like, what do we stand for and what do we absolutely like not compromise on? So maybe that's a good little reflection also for for everybody and their feelings around Bitcoin during this time, what will you absolutely not compromise on, even though while they're essentially trying to shake us out of the market, but we'll circle back to that too. And what's been really cool about seeing a lot of astrologers talk about this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, there's so much coming up from like history in the past. And one post that really stood out to me is by Jessica Adams, who's an astrologer, an Australian astrologer. And she dove into a lot of the history of this conjunction, and it led me down this massive rabbit hole. But just to kind of like summarize what I read and what maybe are some of the themes that we can see being repeated in history is, so in May 1858, during again, Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, it was the time when Russia and China signed a Treaty of Agen. And this was an agreement that established significant trade ties between Russia and China, but it's also where Russia took by territory from China over 2 million miles of territory. And that is still a very important treaty that started back in, again, 1858, that's still being felt in 2024. And then fast forward in 1941, there was another Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus. And this was during World War II, when Hitler's deputy, known as Rudolf Hess, he flew to the UK with a proposal from Hitler to Churchill, essentially to end the war, where Britain would align with Germany against Russia. And that was a period of time where Churchill actually denied that. And what's interesting, side note of all of that, is that Hess, so Rudolf Hess, he actually had an astrologer that told him this would be a good period of time to go to make this agreement because of that conjunction. But it was around the time of a full moon. And Jessica Adams, this astrologer, was like, if this had been a good astrologer giving advice, they would have said, no, don't go because you can't go on the full moon. Do it after the full moon. So, but it's just really cool to see how even back then they used astrologers to pinpoint dates throughout the war when maybe they would go and do these deals. So I thought that these themes were really interesting, seeing what's been going on in the world and what we are continuing to see emerge in the world. And it's just really significant themes that I continue to watch even today in 2024. A lot of astrologers are talking about, okay, get ready for some sort of surprise move from maybe one of these countries that we have just spoken about and that we're seeing reoccurring in these themes in history. But yeah, your thoughts on that, or anything else that you have with specifically the Jupiter conjunction with Uranus?
I mean, very, very interesting, those dates that you were bringing up and things like that, and just looking at what has kind of been going on in the last week in the world. And I think one of the key things for me with Taurus as well, I mean, I kind of like, I love Taurus energy. To me, it's very like nourishing, it's very luxurious. It's like old money aesthetic before it was TikTok trend. You know, this kind of feels, but I think the key word that you said was values. And I think that the really obvious thing that's going on in the world is people are expressing their values. But I think, I mean, I rarely post anything on my own private Instagram. And the only time, like, I share the stuff, obviously, Bitcoin Zodiac, but then I rarely post anything else. But sometimes, like, when I see like 100 Instagrams that are stupid, then I just feel the need to like say something about it. And I think people need to realize like and understand that the incentives in our world are not really aligned to peace. There are far more incentives and greater power structures that are aligned to war and you know, strengthening the military industrial complex and all of these sorts of things. they are strengthened not in times of peace. They're stronger and more powerful and make more money in times of war. And
Yes.
I think we are at a point in society where we need to question, because I don't think this aligns with any ordinary person's values. But I think we all need to ask ourselves the question, like, when is enough enough, and how are we going to move forward and begin to dismantle some of these enormous structures, enormous power structures in our world that just do not align with the values of the majority. And I don't have any answers to that, to be honest, because I think that
Of
it's
course.
like such a huge, like, deeply ingrained, meshed system that I don't really know how that moves forward. But I think that there will be some kind of escalation. I have a feeling, and people are not going to like me saying this, but I do feel like that Israel, and being pushed along by um, America, supported by America, are goading Iran into conflict. They took out, a lot of people are ignoring, especially the mainstream media, is that Israel took out, I think it was in Syria, the Iranian embassy or an Iranian base or something like that in Syria. And that what just happened was actually like a response to that. And it was a warned response. We're going to be doing this, so that basically it was minimal casualties. But it does feel like there's this goading to war, and it's just feeding that never ending war machine, endless war machine, which is just horrific. But the Jupiter
Yes,
Uranus conjunction in Taurus, I actually think is very, very positive
it
um,
is.
for Bitcoin. I think the timing is insane. I think it's a day after the Bitcoin halving. Um,
Yes.
so I think it's beautiful. And I think it's also going to be a positive time for gold too, because Taurus to me is always very gold orientated. And it's also very
Love
much
it.
about the things of the earth. And so, gold is very much about that. So I see it as a positive thing. Um,
I
so
think
it,
so too. I think so too for gold. I think so too for Bitcoin.
mm,
It is, and again, we touched on this last episode. For anybody that missed it, go back and check it out, where we spoke a bit more about the Bitcoin halving and this
yeah,
transit around that. It's just like there can only be so many coincidences when we see the astrology line up with something like the Bitcoin halving to the date. I mean, again, this energy plays out from the 18th through to the 26th, and the Bitcoin halving's happening smack bang in the middle. Like it's just so beautiful. I
yeah,
love it.
it's amazing. And look, I think
Yeah.
when Jupiter and Uranus meet in Taurus, it's this blend of expansive and disruptive energy. So it obviously directly impacts everything that's ruled by Taurus. So um, notably, like financial assets and physical assets too. So this
Yeah.
conjunction, I think it's good for Bitcoin. Again, maybe I'm expecting volatility till like
Yeah.
after the Bitcoin halving, like after the Bitcoin halving, after Mercury retrograde, after all of this choppy kind of astrology. So could be volatile, but overall I think it's very, very positive, and a very positive shift.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, if we even think about what's happened in the world, because really what happened this past Saturday that sparked the initial drop in Bitcoin was everything that's happening in the Middle East. And I feel like it's a bit of a repeat of what happened October 7th.
Yeah.
October 7th, we saw pretty much the exact same thing, everything started happening again in Gaza back then. And you saw gold, Bitcoin drop, because what happens when we are in a moment of fear,
Mm,
and that's the majority of people react in that way with fear. And you're like, oh my God, World War III is happening. I need to get liquid. So what do? We go and start taking profits. We start taking cash out. We start trying to get safe security immediately. But what we saw back then in October 7th is that after that dip, after people panicked, they were like, hold on, where's my safe haven? And that's when people started going back into gold and into Bitcoin. And we saw Bitcoin go up from there. So I think it's also in that sense a similar scenario. You know, here in America, it's yesterday was, you know, the due date for taxes. So a lot of people had some taxes to pay. And
Right.
so probably also needed to take cash out and
There's also some
pay.
stuff going on in my side of the world as well. We just had the announcement of like the Hong Kong Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF.
Mhm.
So we always expect some shenanigans around there to try and shake retail out of the market and push that price down. It's the exact same thing we saw with the Bitcoin ETF launch as well. It was very much like a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event. And but overall it's a really good thing. It's like there's an insane amount of wealth concentrated in Hong Kong. And so it's actually a
Wow.
really big deal for Bitcoin and crypto. So that's really interesting as well.
It is. And I think also then continuing on just these Taurus themes,
Mhm.
as I mentioned, and this is jumping a little forward because this is going to be on the 29th of April. Venus is going into Taurus. And we know Venus to be the planet of love and beauty and finances. And it also now comes into the sign of Taurus, which is, you know, Venus and Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus. And so even Taurus has that energy and that vibe of luxury and beauty. And, you know, Taurus is all the beautiful things in life, but also finances. And I think also something with Taurus is very much like stability. It wants stability, but wants to ignite economic activity too. So from a bit more of like an emotional side of things, or even like the way that we might be feeling, this Venus in Taurus encourages us to seek pleasure, stability, and comfort in the physical world. This can manifest as a heightened appreciation for nature, art, and sensory experiences.
Mm.
Emotionally, there's an increased desire for security in relationships. Maybe that's where we go and assess some of those red flags and we go and shift to things that are a bit more secure,
Yeah.
as well as a preference for long lasting connections. People also tend to be more romantically inclined towards commitment. So, men, gentlemen, this is a great time for proposals. And after Mercury retrograde, and to value loyalty as well during this period. Whereas from an economic standpoint, Venus in Taurus could signal a period of just stability, or even growth and expansion, especially in sectors related to luxury goods, arts, beauty, and real estate. Taurus values quality and sustainability, and so there may be a boost in industries that cater to these preferences. But really, it's around looking for things that are high quality and that have longevity. So, Bitcoin, gold, guys. And in particular for cryptocurrencies, it is a time that you might want to really look for those stabler coins. So, I'm not saying stable coins, but maybe those more well established assets over the more speculative and volatile ones. And even if we look at, you know, the market cycles and phases from when the money shifts from Bitcoin to Ethereum to altcoins to meme coins, we're very much now seeing the money flow back into that very well established asset such as Bitcoin. So this is a really great time to evaluate where your money is, where you have it invested, and maybe focusing on really securing those well established assets over time. So I
Mm.
like Venus in Taurus. I
Yeah.
think it's such a beautiful, soothing time.
Yeah.
Like we're shifting out of Venus in Aries, which can be a little, there's a lot of passion, but there's a little too much sometimes. So Taurus, it creates a bit more of that like stability, which is
Yeah.
very nice. So,
I think
lots
how
of
I would.
Taurus themes.
Yeah, and I really like Taurus energy. I think maybe as I get older, I really like Taurus energy. It feel like
Mm,
it feels very nourishing. And I think I've sort of made this
mm,
distinction. in previous episodes before, like the way that I would describe Taurus is in terms of money is like it's wealth versus being rich. There's a big
Mm-hmm.
difference to me in
Mm-hmm.
that. And Taurus is about wealth, like established, secure, grounded, and building that foundation rather than just like quick money, spending a lot, getting very excited about spending a lot. It's much more like nourishing and quality and luxury in that
Yes.
respect. So that's that energy, and so beautiful with Venus in Taurus. It's a yeah, beautiful time.
Yeah, it is. So that's very exciting, very positive for the overall economy. But again, just really, like you said, like just that stable asset that creates wealth. That's why this is not that I think it's ever really a great time for meme coins. This is a great time to not be in
I don't know. They've been
coins
doing
or
they've been doing
Bitcoin.
really well recently. I mean, some of these
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
even know
the
what
end
they
of that
are.
cycle.
Like, what is cat with hat or like dog
Oh
with
my gosh, I
what are
know.
these things? Who
Hey,
thinks
and
of
I
these?
don't know, like I just got out of like that wallet, but I got airdropped cat with hat, and I was just like, I'm gonna exit out of this wallet and shift everything out. So
Crazy. It's so
I don't
crazy.
know if it's an actual coin, but regardless, I really feel like the meme run is over when we really look at that cycle. I don't know if we've ever spoken about it on here before, but just for general, in case there's somebody here that doesn't know this. So we tend to see the phases of money flow from Bitcoin, then into Ethereum, then from Ethereum into altcoins, and then from altcoins into meme coins. And that's really like that end euphoria, excitement, like the memes are going crazy. And then that's when people start to take profits and shift it all back into Bitcoin. And that's when we see similar to what we're seeing right now in the market. So I think that phase is ending
I
and
think
we're coming
so
back.
from just a price action point of view, not just an astrology point of view, like this pullback is healthy. We've been
Yes.
I've been hammering on about this for the last couple of episodes, but it's like we needed a pullback. And the
Yeah.
thing is, the market is like really efficient at punishing greed and kind of punishing fear, like, and then it
Really.
rewards courage. So like when everybody else is freaking out, oh my God, we're going back to 10K or something from 70.
Yeah.
That it's you have the courage and the conviction to start buying. And so
Hmm.
that's I would actually really love to see Bitcoin by the time the full moon comes to have bottomed out around 50 or 52. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure that we're going to get there. But let's see. Let's see.
Yeah.
But I'm talking in terms of price action. I just really like to see some of those imbalances filled in. But
Agreed.
we shall see. We shall see.
Agreed.
But at least
Agreed.
it'll
Agreed.
wick
And
down.
say that again. Sorry.
We should have some limit orders in if you are wanting to stack some more sats at these levels, because
Yeah.
it could very easily just wick down, like we saw it a couple of days ago, wick down to about 60K or 60,500 or something like that, and then it just went, kind of like quite quickly got bought back up. So
Yeah.
yeah, so have those limit orders in place if you are wanting to stack some more sats before the Bitcoin halving.
Agreed. Agreed. That's why there's always pros to what sometimes seems to be a con, and this is most definitely the positive side of these I think, like you said, there's just a healthy pullback, and it's nothing major when we zoom out. We're just like,
Oh,
it's just a little pullback. It's literally like nothing
I think it's about
major.
20% or
So
something, 18-20%, I think. Um, but
from
but the
from
alt,
the all-time high,
yeah.
it's about a 16, 17%. So
Yeah.
no biggie. Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's more that
So,
people are freaking out because they're looking at the altcoins, because some of them have come back
mm,
quite substantially, but that's what they
they
do.
have.
You know, that's what these altcoins do, especially the very low market caps. Like they have huge gains. You know, some of them have like 500x'd since we haven't even gotten to the halving yet. And some of these are like
Wild.
500x, like some of these crazy small cap coins, but they also get absolutely annihilated when Bitcoin has a pullback. So you just have to be very, very careful. Um, I wouldn't recommend like over leveraging at this time. It's really not the time for that. And
Mm-mm.
yeah, just being a bit careful and keeping your emotions and expectations in check as well.
Yeah.
But we also have a full moon in Scorpio.
Which
So
I'm excited to talk about because there's so
yeah.
many things that you've like just said. I
Mhm.
literally almost like verbatim have them in my notes about what I'm seeing in Bitcoin for this full moon.
Yeah.
So I love the alignment. But please go ahead if you want to start saying something about the full moon and Scorpio before I dive into
Well, I just
Bitcoin's
think
chart.
Scorpio was just like such interesting energy. And again, I think it's very misunderstood energy, actually. Like, and I think
Yes.
you know, some people think it had like it's like evil or dark or whatever. And
Mm,
it's
yeah.
not, it's like but it is secretive. So there again, like the revelation, a little bit like the eclipse energy, we could see some revelation of some secrets. So yeah, maybe some sudden disclosures or insights, particularly related to hidden or obscure financial matters like debt. Um, you know, those I think it's going to be around global debt, to be honest. I think it's going to be some disclosures around that. I think it's going to be some disclosures around the reality of the unrealized losses that banks are sitting on. I think we're going to see some of that come through with this full moon and be revealed, and maybe a spotlight be shone on that. And you want to be careful around the Scorpio full moon. Again, we are still in, you know, we are looking at that Mercury retrograde finishing. So communication, it's not the best time to be like hashing things out and communicating with people. But also with this Scorpio full moon, you do have that like emotional decision making. You can be very, very emotional. And so it kind of like might lead to some volatility in the market with heightened emotional reactions from investors and market participants. So causing some maybe dramatic swings in market sentiment. So it's also, though, very sort of significant around these themes of transformation and renewal, which we are just getting over and over and over again. You know, so we might be looking at some restructuring, or it might be a good time to learn those lessons that you learned in the eclipse and maybe look at your portfolio and restructure it and make sure it's a little more balanced with you know, a good portion of Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some, you know, all of these. Make sure there's a balance and you have some more stable assets, as Corinne said as well. And also being driven by a deeper understanding of what is truly valuable and what is sustainable. So again, that kind of like leads into that, like we're not called the crypto zodiac, we're called the Bitcoin Zodiac. And so like that obviously is our focus, and the reason that is our focus is because of its fundamental values, its key features of 21 million limited supply. A quote from Natalie Brunell on her recent debate with Peter Schiff is, you know, Bitcoin is rules, unchangeable, immutable rules without rulers. And so, you know, that's the sustainability factor that we see for that makes Bitcoin different from everything else. And so, yeah, you want to kind of be coming from that point of view as well. And side note, Natalie Brunell absolutely killed it in this debate. Peter Schiff
She's
talking
so
about
cool.
gold, Natalie Brunell talking about Bitcoin, and she just did such an amazing job, so elegantly. And
Yeah.
I mean, she's an Emmy award-winning journalist. She is media trained for sure, but it's so incredible when you see someone just like walking in their gifting. Like she's such a gift to the Bitcoin community. And yeah, I highly recommend that anybody go who hasn't seen it, go check that out. And yeah, have a look at her debate about Bitcoin versus gold.
She is. She's such a queen.
Mm,
Like
1000%.
like divine feminine walking in her purpose. It's
Yeah,
so beautiful.
so cool to see.
And we're very lucky that we get her in the Bitcoin community. So
Yeah, yeah.
um
I love that
yeah.
aspect of like nothing wasted, because she had such an amazing career as a journalist,
Hmm.
in the media, and she's that there's never anything wasted when when you change direction and move towards your passion. Like it's like those
Yeah.
giftings that she gleaned through all of that experience and now being channeled into the Bitcoin community. Like what a blessing.
I think she's a Scorpio. I think when
I
we
think she
interviewed
is. Yeah.
her, yeah, I think when we interviewed her, and for anybody that missed that, that was actually one of like our very, I think she was our very first guest here on the
Mm,
Bitcoin Zodiac. Go back and check out. It's just the audio.
yeah,
But highly recommend. Yeah, we talked a little bit about her astrology, so she's great.
absolutely.
um but yeah, and also to add on what you were saying about this full moon in Scorpio is that the next two moons that we have, so full moon in Scorpio on the 23rd of April, and then the following new moon on the 7th of May is Taurus. These moons are happening on that economy and money axes. So Taurus and Scorpio literally rule money. And so that's, and also like, Taurus rules the second house and Scorpio rules the eighth house. And that, even from a personal astrology standpoint, that is your houses that represent money, investments, your economy. So that's pretty powerful stuff that is coming up, aligned within all these Taurus aspects. It's a very important period of time. So I would say like, let's really be locked in, Bitcoin Zodiac family, and let's like really be present with everything that's coming up in these next couple of weeks. Um
Let's stack
Looking
that and build some
specifically,
wealth.
let's stack sats. Amen. Let's actually look at and I'll share here again. So just the transit that's coming up specifically for Bitcoin during this time. So here we're looking at Bitcoin specifically at the 100% full moon. So we see the sun there in Taurus, whereas we have the moon in Scorpio. And so we can see that the moon is occurring in the fourth house, and the fourth house is related to all things earth, resources, and mining as well.
Mhm.
So if there was any other place to have a full moon in, there couldn't be a better place for the full moon to occur, right as we have the Bitcoin halving.
Mm.
Because I think this really is marking like, hey, Bitcoin halving is happening. And this is where the attention is being put right now. Then the other interesting thing is that we both have the sun and the moon squared the natal Mercury of Bitcoin. And this is giving us that heads up around news and news around the Bitcoin halving. I think there is going to be a lot of false, misleading, confusing information that comes up.
Mm.
And we're already seeing it with this drop. Like we said, if you have been in the crypto space for a while, and when you really zoom out, we know that this is not a big, significant drop. But already the headlines are like, approaching the Bitcoin halving,
Mm.
Bitcoin crashes to $64,000. And you're like, maybe that's a little overreacting, and we're not trying to gaslight you. That's just a little overreacting. So that's just like confusing information. So be very aware of that because that will come up. Now, with continuing with the moon being specifically in Scorpio, we could see a bit of that shadow side of Scorpio, which, like you were saying, it is mysterious. And there can be, again, this is just the shadow side. It can also be a little sneaky, and maybe has other intentions that are not being shown on the surface. So I feel like when I dive deeper into the overall astrology as well, this is why I'm bringing up this shadow side, because I do feel like there is a manipulative shakeout period occurring here. I
Right.
do feel like, as you know, we've been talking about, the astrology for Bitcoin just looks so good. The stars are aligning, but as it's doing that, and as everything starts to look like sunshines and rainbows, they come to shake everybody out. And it's being very much represented right now in the astrology because they want to stack sats. They want your Bitcoin. They want us to sell Bitcoin so that they can get more of those sats. And I actually read a quote yesterday, which is liquidations are a forced transfer of wealth from
Yeah.
traders who need leverage to wealthy spot buyers.
Right.
And this is exactly what's happening right now.
Mhm.
So let's really pay attention to that. Also, like we said, so we have that Jupiter Uranus conjunction occurring in Taurus, which is still, quite prominent on the 23rd. However, for Bitcoin specifically, I mean, it's got a beautiful trine with Saturn, but it has a bit more of a challenging square with Neptune. So
Mhm.
that's challenging square with Neptune specifically for Bitcoin is kind of, again, giving a bit of a warning of pay extra attention around this time. Don't, like Claire said, let's not go super crazy leverage around this time. Don't take any large risks. And also don't fall for the easy, quick money around this time, bringing it back to those Taurus, Venus themes.
Yeah.
Let's really look at those things for the long run during this time. Whereas that positive aspect with Saturn, this is showing us in Saturn. I always think of like the wise old man that's like, yes, Bitcoin, like we've got to go through this period. Let's like restabilize. Let's get ourselves really solidly prepared before we continue on. I always kind of think of like, as an entrepreneur and as I've gone through my journey, sometimes, and, as an excited entrepreneur too, it's like we always think that like, or especially at the start, we're like, we always want things going up. It's like we always want the uptrend. We always want to be bullish. And as soon as you have a little bit of a pullback and you have that restabilizing moment, which is an invitation to resettle everything, make sure that your foundations are strong and solid, your teams are good, your business is good, your systems are good, to then progress and go towards those all-time highs.
Mm.
That's kind of the energy that we're feeling right now, and that's being very much shown with this really positive aspect with Bitcoin's natal Saturn. So that's super exciting. And just the last thing that I'll point out on this as well is that we do have the full moon, so sun and moon, with these positive aspects to the natal Pluto, as well as the natal Mars as well. So they're both very close, and they have these positive aspects with this full moon. And this as well, kind of to summarize, is kind of like with the Pluto, it's this deep recognition or this deep reflection of the meaning of life. So, like, what Bitcoin's meaning is as it prepares for that next run. Like, Pluto's very deep, it's like generational, it's the depths of you. So, I think that's a really great indication for a good time to look for those buys as we prepare for the upcoming run. And then with that Mars positive aspect as well, like Mars is that passion, that excitement, that impulse.
Mhm.
And like Claire said earlier, this is a sign to get courageous. to step into that courage, even though things might look like, oh no, but like Bitcoin's coming down, we're seeing these pullbacks, there's alts that have a significant pullback. That's okay. This is the time to be courageous, to step back into our trading plans, to step back into the, wait, what's the wider vision? What is the overall percentages even that I want in my portfolio? And this is the time to step back into that courage before we prepare for that takeoff. So
Yeah.
there are some challenges. It's not going to be smooth. It never is, right? Otherwise, boring. Nobody wants to watch a movie where everything just works out perfectly. Like the superhero has to have its challenges as they go along. But good wins in the end. So it's always a happy ending.
Yeah, totally. And I think in these times of like really great volatility, we just have to look at it objectively. And, you know,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like market makers on the other side of your trade, I've said this before, but they make their money by taking yours. Like that's the reality. And
Yep.
so there are always going to be these shakeouts, and the markets themselves are this kind of like great equalizer or this great reminder. They are, for us to be able to progress forward in a healthy way, we have to clear the greed out of the market. We have to have that wake up call. And so
Yeah.
it's always going to be this period of expansion and some contraction, expansion and contraction. And that is the same as I was saying at the beginning in terms of life. Like it's some growth and then we get pruned a little bit, some growth again, and that's just the way that we can move forward in a really healthy way as well. Like it's impossible to move
Definitely.
forward in any other way. And that is what a bull run is. Like people get so freaked out when there is a pullback in a bull run, and it's like, well, actually they're more aggressive than in a bear market generally, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, so do be prepared for that. If it is freaking you out, take a little take some profits and take some money off the table. But
Yes.
I do encourage you on these pullbacks that, you know, lean in. I've been looking at building my alt portfolio. You guys know I've been talking about this, or not building it, but adding more to it. And so these pullbacks I see as opportunities to jump into some projects that were just at a level that I thought was unreasonable, were too expensive at the time. I thought they'd gone up too much. And so I'm happy to see some of these projects pull back, and we'll pick some up ready for the other side of the halving too. So yeah, just
Yeah.
look at everything
Yeah.
objectively, feel all your feelings, make sure you feel all your feelings, all my intuitive sensitive beings. Yeah, absolutely lean into that, lean into your intuition, and yeah. Peace, love, and
I love
Bitcoin.
peace, love, and Bitcoin.